Abby noticed her father going to the shed at a late hour, something he never did. She decided to go to him to ask what he was doing, as any curious 12-year-old would do. But her father acted suspiciously, intercepting her as she was on her way to the shed. She clearly wasn't allowed in, but why? This made her even more curious, and she decided to see for herself, something she later wished she never did. What was her father hiding from her? She had to find out. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. She walked into the kitchen while calling her father's cell phone. She heard a buzz coming out of his jacket and realized he couldn't be far, as he wasn't wearing anything other than jeans and a t-shirt. Then she heard a noise coming from the backyard. What was going on here? Her heart began to race as she approached the back door. What if her father wasn't there? What if there was an intruder and he was trying to fight him off? But she was quickly assured that her father was, in fact, still home. He was just busy in the shed. Abby sighed a sigh of relief. But her relief was short-lived, as her father had never before worked in the shed at these hours. She wondered what he was doing in there, and quickly put on a pair of slippers. She stepped out in the yard and let the back door fall shut behind her. Her father must have heard the door closing as he suddenly appeared. Abby couldn't hear what he was saying, only muffled sounds and sometimes laughter. Whatever he was doing, he seemed to be enjoying it, so why would he be so secretive about it to his wife and daughter? Abby was about to knock on the door and confront her father when he suddenly stopped talking, and another sound echoed through the walls. The second sound was far from positive. It actually made chills run down Abby's spine. After hearing the sound, she didn't want to stay near the shed any longer, so she ran back inside, not thinking about closing the door slowly. The door slammed shut behind her as she ran up the stairs and jumped into bed. Abby held her breath as she listened to the sound of her father exiting the shed and slowly coming inside. She could hear the creaking sound of each step he took on the stairs, and as he got closer, her heart raced faster. Soon after, he stood in her room in silence. Abby lay as still as she could, closed her eyes, and pretended to be asleep. She could feel the warmth of his breath on her cheek as he peeked over the side of her face to see if she were actually asleep. Then, he slowly backed away and went into his own room for the night. The following morning, there was tension between Abby and her father. It was obvious to her, but her mother had no clue. She knew she had to hurry even more now, as her father could move his secret project to a different location. She was sure he felt guilty for Abby stepping on a nail in his workplace, so there was a good chance he would move places within the next few days. Abby knew her father would drink a few beers every Friday, and whenever he did that, he would always fall into a very deep sleep, sometimes even in front of the TV. So when Friday came, she was ready. She pretended to sleep until her clock said 0 o'clock and silently headed to her parents' room. She slowly opened the door and walked over to her father's side of the bed, but to her surprise, she only saw her mother sleeping. This probably meant her father was asleep in front of the TV, so she silently walked downstairs. The TV was still on, which was a good thing because Abby stepped on a very loud floorboard. The creaking sound of the floorboard was very loud, and Abby's heart was pounding in her chest. She closed her eyes and expected her father to turn around and see her, but he made a loud snoring sound instead. Abby realized nothing was going to happen if she didn't do it herself. She had to push through the fear and find that damn light switch. She slowly got up and felt around her. She found a broom and used that to guide her through the darkness. Carefully, she felt the walls until finally she found the switch. She flicked the switch and a single light bulb in the middle of the shed jumped on. Abby had to shield her eyes from the light as she was so adjusted to the darkness, but within a minute or so, she could look around her. In this light, the shed wasn't so scary anymore, but she had to hurry up. Phew, they are still asleep. She slowly opened the door to check if her parents' light was still off, and it was. She thought. She silently closed the door again and turned around. The shed was cluttered with all sorts of objects and garden tools, but she quickly spotted something that looked out of the ordinary. There was something at the back of the shed with a white sheet over it. Abby couldn't make out what it was by the shape, but it looked terrifying. The sheet that covered the object was stained red, and it almost looked like blood. Abby's heart started racing again, and she felt short of breath. But first, she had to wait until her father was further away from the shed. The door was slightly open, so she could see her father just standing there, unsure of what to do. Then he ran inside when Abby's mother called him. Abby quickly got up and wanted to walk away, but caught a glimpse of the white sheet in the corner of her eye. No, she was so close. Was she really going to let this perfect opportunity go and go back to square one? She thought. She quickly turned around but bumped against a bucket as she turned. The bucket fell to the ground with a loud bang. "Abby!" her father yelled again as he made his way to the shed. Abby quickly ran to the object and grabbed the sheet. "Abby!" her father yelled, now standing at the door opening of the shed. "Abby, don't." Abby looked her father dead in the eye and said, "What are you hiding under here, Daddy? Why am I not allowed to see it?" By now, Abby's mother stood by her husband's side. "Abby, what are you doing in here? Why aren't you in bed?" "Daddy is hiding something from us, Mom. He's been acting suspicious all week, and I know because I've been watching him." Her mother looked at her confusedly and then at the red. Her mother gasped, and Abby stood frozen in place. Her eyes were wide in shock. Suddenly, Abby screamed, and she ran to her father with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Daddy, thank you." Abby's father sighed and hugged his daughter tightly. "You ruined your own birthday surprise, you little monster." Abby's mother smiled at her husband. "I had no idea you were building her first bike, and in her favorite color, too." She put her arms around her husband and kissed him on the cheek. "Now, shall we go back to bed?" she said to Abby when she finally let go of her father. Abby nodded. Her cheeks were blushy as she turned to her father and apologized for not listening to him. She had totally forgotten her birthday was in a week and didn't think it could be a birthday surprise he was hiding. It looked so scary, so her imagination had run wild, only to find out it was a bright red bike all along.